Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're exploring a seriously fascinating frontier of medicine, neurosurgery. But we aren't just looking at this as a typical medical specialty. No, we are looking at it as the literal architecture of being human.
Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to imagine, just for a second, the sheer stakes of this profession. What is it actually like to operate on the delicate, highly physical network that allows you to speak, or to remember your favorite childhood vacation, or to recognize your own mother's face? Historically, the brain has always felt almost mythical to us, hasn't it? It's the organ that inspired wild stories like Frankenstein, where science sort of blurs right into philosophy. But for a neurosurgeon, this is their Tuesday. It's their daily reality, working under immense, crushing pressure on the exact system that makes you feel like you. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how early pioneers proved that our identity is, in fact, a deeply physical thing. Take Wilder Penfield, for example. He was an absolute trailblazer in modern brain mapping. He actually performed surgeries while his patients were completely awake. Yes, conscious, talking, wide awake, right in the middle of brain surgery. And as he worked, he would stimulate these tiny, highly specific areas of their brains with electrical probes.
And the results of those little electrical probes, they were absolutely awe-inspiring. Patients didn't just report feeling a random physical twitch. No, they suddenly experienced incredibly vivid, complex memories. They would hear specific childhood songs playing in their heads. They'd literally smell the kitchens from the houses they grew up in decades earlier. They were reliving completely forgotten moments in real time. Just imagine that. A surgeon touches a fraction of a millimeter of tissue, and suddenly, boom, you were unlocking a warm summer afternoon from when you were just 7 years old. It's wild.
So, what does this all mean? Well, this breakthrough fundamentally changed our understanding of memory forever. It proved, absolutely beyond a shadow of a doubt, that our very identity, our memories, our deepest emotions, our language, they are all physical processes happening right there inside our skulls. It is pure biology, but honestly, it still feels almost magical. But, as you might guess, to actually wield the scalpel and touch that biological magic, it requires a completely grueling marathon. The training is immense. We're talking 14 to 16 years of continuous, relentless education. You've got your undergraduate degrees, medical school, an internship, a fiercely demanding residency, and then usually a specialized fellowship on top of all that. A student starting out at age 18 might not be practicing on their own until their mid-30s.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how massive that time frame really is. Let's put this into perspective. Imagine starting your medical training on the exact same day the very first Harry Potter movie, The Sorcerer's Stone, hit theaters. You wouldn't actually finish your training and step into your own operating room until the release of the final movie in the entire franchise. Framing it like that really shows why neurosurgery isn't just a degree you knock out in a few years. It is a long-term life project. It's a vocation.
This naturally brings up a question that medical students are constantly asking. Is it harder than general surgery? Well, they're difficult in very different ways, but the margins for error in neurosurgery are just terrifyingly small. Think of it like this. A general surgeon taking out an inflamed appendix, that's a bit like repairing a smartphone. A neurosurgeon removing a tumor that's sitting just millimeters away from your speech center, that's like repairing the central processor chip inside that smartphone while the phone is powered on and the owner is actively making a phone call. Because of that extreme precision and the intense, continuous decision-making required, time takes on a completely different meaning in the operating room. A 6-hour operation? That's totally normal. Just another day at the office. But for highly complex cases, it is not unusual at all for a single surgery to stretch beyond 12 hours. Imagine the absolute, unwavering physical and mental focus you need to maintain for that entire duration. So the crucial point is clearing up a massive popular misconception. Most people hear neurosurgeon and they instantly think brain surgeon. But they don't just operate on the brain, far from it. They treat spinal disc problems, traumatic spinal injuries, severe nerve compression, chronic pain, movement disorders like Parkinson's disease, and even epilepsy. And that right there is the physical reality of the job. Despite the name neurosurgeon giving us that instant visual of a skull, these surgeons are really mechanics of the entire human nervous system. A huge portion of their daily reality and their actual time in surgery involves the spine and the peripheral nerves. They handled the whole shebang. Now, the environments where they do this incredibly delicate work are highly advanced. When you walk into a modern operating room today, it looks way less like one of those old standard TV hospital dramas and much more like the bridge of the Star Trek Enterprise. It is quite literally a sci-fi command center brought to life.
We are talking medicine as a fiercely high-tech discipline. How do they navigate all this? Well, they rely heavily on robotic systems, real-time imaging, AI-assisted surgical planning, and microscopic navigation. They are basically using these incredible systems that act like real-time GPS maps for your brain, right alongside implanted neuro devices, and it's all aimed at one amazing goal: improving human life.
So who actually does this job? Let's toss out that old pop culture stereotype of the arrogant genius with zero social life. The reality is that this field requires a highly specific, very human profile. You need a sky-high tolerance for stress, an exceptional level of concentration, a profound curiosity about how complex systems work, endless patience for long-term goals, and most importantly, immense emotional resilience.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because perhaps the single most overlooked trait required for this job is simply this: comfort with uncertainty. You see, the human nervous system is so immensely, beautifully complex that it strips away any absolute guarantees. It doesn't matter how skilled or how perfectly prepared the surgeon is going in,
And that translates to an incredibly heavy emotional toll. Just imagine, a surgeon can execute a completely flawless procedure. We're talking absolute perfection in effort. And yet, they can still face a terrible outcome simply because of the unpredictable nature of the nervous system. They have to live with the heavy reality that their work, even when done flawlessly, can permanently alter a patient's memory, their core identity, or their ability to move.
People always ask, can neurosurgeons even have a normal life? Well, when your training regularly demands 70 to 80-hour work weeks during residency, undeniably, it's really tough. But beyond the sheer, bone-deep physical exhaustion, there's a devastating, immeasurable emotional weight to it all. Because the hardest part of the job isn't always the surgery itself. Sometimes it's having to sit down, look a family in the eye, and tell them that a loved one survived, but they might never walk or speak again.
Which leads us to the ultimate question. After decades of delayed career progression, all that intense nonstop training, and carrying that incredibly heavy emotional burden day in and day out, is it actually worth it? Sure, the high compensation and the prestige are definitely there, but if you're just chasing status, burnout is practically guaranteed.
But for those truly fascinated by the mind, the answer is a resounding yes. For them, neurosurgery isn't just a job you clock in and out of. It's a daily expedition into the totally unexplored biological territory of human consciousness. Every single day, you are literally intervening in the architecture of being human. And it really leaves you to wonder what other profound, life-altering mysteries are still waiting to be discovered in the unmapped territories of our own minds. Thanks for joining this explainer. Keep wondering, and we'll catch you next time.